Notes for Unit 0, Lesson 2. If you could go in Week 2 packet and find this document so you could follow along with me. Anytime I use a pencil, it'll be in black, and anytime I use a highlighter, I want you to use a colored colored pen, or even a highlighter. Highlighters, it might be a little bit challenging. So let's begin. So our learning target will be, I will know how to multiply and divide integers. So let's look at here. So here, So here I have, when we multiply, if you use this triangle as a guide, I think of this as Rudy, and I will refer to him as we are in class. So I draw your triangle, and I want you to draw his eyes and his nose. Eyes match. And when I look at this, this is how you want to use this drawing. If I do a negative times a negative, I'm going to cover up my negatives, and what's showing is a positive. So I know anytime I multiply those, I get a positive. Yesterday and the day before, we learned that the bigger team always wins, but that doesn't apply when I'm multiplying. So I want you to use this Mr. Rudy here to help you with the multiplication. Let's see, there he goes. Okay. And we knew that was a positive. I'm going to use that same idea when I do a negative times a positive. I'll cover up a negative, and I'm going to cover up the positive. And the only thing showing is a negative, so I know it'll be negative. When I divide, the same rules apply. I'm going to cover a negative divided by a negative. I'm going to cover the two negatives. Okay, and the only thing showing is a positive, so I know that's a positive. Erase that. And here I have a negative divided by a positive. It looks like yours didn't wrap around, so could you add this positive here? So again, I'm going to cover the negative and the positive, and the only thing showing is a negative. So I know my answer is negative. So when we're working at multiplying or dividing integers, quickly sketch your little Rudy, and that will, you could use that as a guide there. Okay, so using that idea to do negative 7 times 5. So always deal with the sign first so you don't forget your sign. So I have a positive here. I know this is a negative times a positive. So I'm going to use my drawing here and cover up a negative and a positive, and the only thing showing is a negative. So I know already that my answer is negative. So I'm going to write negative, and I do 7 times 5 is 35. I wonder if your planner has a times table chart on there. All right. Here I have negative 3 times a negative 6. So I want you to write negative times a negative. And if you know it, you know it's going to be a certain sign. But if you're not sure, again, I'm going to show you how to use this tool. I'm going to cover up my two negatives, and the only thing showing is a positive. And it's just a quick way of remembering what a negative times a negative is. So I know it's positive, but I'm not going to write positive. So I'm going to leave it alone. And 3 times 6 is 18. Okay. So here I have 3 numbers. I could only do 2 at a time, so I'm going to focus on these 2 here. So I know this is a negative times a negative. Using my figure here, I know that's positive. So I know that is a positive. And 4 times 3 is 12. So I know that's a positive 12. And I'm going to write the negative 20. So now I have to figure that out. So I'm going to continue to simplify. And here I have a positive times a negative. And again, I'm going to use this whole idea. I'm going to cover his eyes. That negative times a positive is what the only thing is showing is a negative. So I'm going to write, I know my final answer will be negative. And I have 12 times 20. I think of this as 12 times 2. Well, that I could do in my head. That's 12 times 2 is 24. I double the 2 and I double the 1. And then because it's a multiple of 10, I could just add that 10 there. Okay. Using that idea to do this one, I could multiply any of those in any order, and I could only do 2 at a time. So because it's the 10, I'm going to do these first. Okay. And I know, well, that's a negative times a negative. I'm going to use this idea. A positive is showing. So I know that these two will be positive. And 7 times 2 is 14. And I have to bring in that 10. So I'm going to simplify some more. And 14 times 10, well, we learned, well, I could just add that 0. So it's 140. Okay, what about dividing? I could use that same idea of Mr. Rudy. So I'm going to draw, I'm going to draw it, and anytime I'm going to do my multiplying and dividing with negative numbers, I'm going to draw this. And it's only for multiplying and dividing, so keep that in mind. This symbol here, that's my division symbol. That's what we will use for division at all times from here forward. I want to think of this as a negative 9 divided by a negative 3. So I'm going to again focus on my two signs. I have a negative divided by a negative, so I could cover up Rudy's eyes, and I have a positive. Another way to think of it is, well, I know the negatives cancel each other out, so I know it's going to be a positive. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, here we have 12 divided by negative 3. So I have a positive divided by a negative. So my answer will be a negative. So I'm going to write that down first so I don't forget. Another way of looking at it, the negative doesn't cancel with any negatives on top. So I know my answer will be negative. And now I'm going to focus on just the numbers now. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And 24 divided by 6, I'm going to work on that. Notice this negative is on the outside. When it's on the outside, I want you to think of it, it could be either negative 24 over 6 or 24 divided by a negative 6, but not both. It only belongs to one. So again, a negative divided by a positive. If I don't know those rules yet, draw me your Rudy, and oh, I know it's negative, so deal with that sign first. And 24 divided by 6 is 4, and that's my final answer. You'll also have some fractions at times. When I look at multiplying fractions, I'm going to have, I multiply across, okay? So I'm going to write this as negative 2 divided by a negative 3 times 12 over 1. So I know I have a negative divided by a negative. Well, I know they cancel out, or I could use the whole idea of Mr. Rudy and cover out my two negatives and realize it'll be positive. So I know it's going to be positive. Okay. And I could do 2 times 12 is 24. So I multiply across. I'm going to do that in color. Multiply across. Oh, that's a little big. Where's all my other colors? There we go. Multiply across. 3 times 1 is 3. And now I'm going to divide at the end. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. So I'm going to continue to simplify until I can no longer simplify. Okay, let's look at this one. I have a negative times a negative. Again, I'm going to use the whole idea of Mr. Rudy, and I'm going to cover up his eyes, and I know the only thing showing, oh, I didn't write that, is a plus. That's kind of bad. Sorry. And the only thing showing is a positive. So here, let me try that again. Okay. So I know my answer is positive. So then I think of this as 2. Remember that negative belongs to the top or the bottom, but not both. 2, and I'm making them on the top, times 3 over 1. I'm going to multiply across. Negative. We knew it's positive, so 2 times 3 is 6, and 5 times 1 is 5. This can no longer go in evenly, so I'm going to leave it alone, and I can't simplify any further. All right. Look at your slides in Google Classroom, and you could find out what your assignment is for today. Have a great day.